Now it's recording. so, so what we're doing, we're going to read the last leaf. You're going to open your cami. You're going to make your notes, underlining everything you find interesting. You're going to write 5 notes to yourself. Hold on 1 second. I'm going to pause the sound here. How do I do this? Forgot where I left off. That's not it. That's not where I left off. That's where I left off. Here it is. Come back. Come back. Oh, I meant to pause, and I guess I didn't pause. Oh well. Okay, so you're going to also write 5 to 10 notes to yourself using the comments text box and pen. And each note should make an analysis of the character. So you could talk about the characters and how they're developing, or the themes. Talk about what you think the messages are, how they're being developed in the story. Talk about the symbols. Anything you see that you think is symbolic, it's actually in there to represent something else. Metaphors, where the comparisons are being used, or any other literary devices. I remember in one of the last stories we had some personification, where something that's not alive is made to seem as if they're alive. You can use my notes for reference. I'm going to show you all my notes, but go ahead and make your own notes. Don't just copy my page and try to submit my page as your page. Your page should have your underlining. All right. And what I'm going to do by this time, I think I can grade your things by quality and effort. I have been giving you credit for just getting it done. And now I think I can start giving you credit for how well you do it and how much effort you put into doing it. So my plan is that if you try to do it well and you really put in some effort, you'll get 100. Right? But if it looks like you just slapped something together and turned it in, then maybe it won't be 100. So my copy is there, and your copy is there. You're going to open your copy, and you remember when you open your copy, it's going to give you an option of opening it with Cami. So it will open up the PDF, and you'll have 2 ways of opening the Cami. There's a blue box off on the side, and also in the middle, up at the top. I don't know why it's not showing up yet. Right up here, it's lagging. Should say it right up there. I don't know why it's not showing. Okay. Well, apparently today, there it is. You click on this little arrow, and it lets you open it with Cami. Okay, so you're going to open it with Cami, and that way, when you open it with Cami, it will give you all the tools. Now I'm going to switch over to my copy, and open mine with Cami. Come on, lagging a bit. All right, and what you'll get is all the tools. You have a markup tool. The markup tool allows you to underline lines like a highlighter. You have a comment box tool that allows you to highlight something and then make a comment on it. You have a text tool that allows you to make a little text box and type a comment in. And you have a drawing tool which allows you to use it like a pen. It may be difficult to use it right if you don't have a stylus or if you can't touch your screen and write with your finger. So you may choose one of the other options if writing with a drawing tool is too difficult. So I've marked mine up, right? And I'm going to go ahead and read this story to you, all right? While we're reading it, we're looking for these things that we talked about: character, themes, metaphors, symbols, literary devices. It's called The Last Leaf by O. Henry. And O. Henry was famous for his folksy stories, his stories about real people, especially people in New York City, and not famous celebrities, but just regular people. And his stories often had some kind of irony or twist or something funny going on. It was very popular in the time, and now seen as a little bit, I don't know, corny or folksy, but quite good for English teachers reading. His name was William Sidney Porter, um, and he was an American writer better known by his pen name, O. Henry. Okay, his street name, his pen name, the name that he wrote under. Um, it was published in 1907. A story about a young girl named Johnsy who gets pneumonia. And you remember, pneumonia is a lung sickness which they can now currently treat with antibiotics. But antibiotics were not as available back in 1907 as they are now. If you get pneumonia now, they put you in the hospital and they give you antibiotics and they take care of your lungs, which fill up with um, bacteria and liquid. Um, and she's given a 1 in 10 chance of surviving. And as you read, take notes on the literary devices the author uses to describe Johnsy's condition and the vine outside her window. How do these details contribute to your reading of the text? Okay, that's what they're asking you to do, which is similar to what I'm asking. Okay, here goes the story. Before I start reading the story, any questions, or did I skip something, or is anyone confused? All right. In a little district west of Washington Square is a part in New York City, Manhattan on the island. West of Washington Square, the streets have run crazy and broken themselves into small strips called places. These places make strange angles and curves. One street crosses itself a time or two. An artist once discovered a valuable possibility in this street. Suppose a collector with a bill for paints, paper, and canvas should, in traversing this route, suddenly meet himself coming back without a cent having been paid on account. So, to quaint old Greenwich Village, the art people soon came prowling and hunting for north windows and 18th century gables and Dutch attics and low rents. They then imported some pewter mugs and a chafing dish or two from the Sixth Avenue. It became a colony. So the artists all showed up, and this became like a little artist colony, a little place where all the artists lived. At the top of a squatty 3-story building, Sue and Johnsy had their studio. Johnsy was familiar for Joanna. One was from Maine, the other from California. They had met at the table d'hôte of an 8th Street Delmonico's and found their tastes in art, chicory salad, and bishop sleeves so congenial that the joint studio resulted. So they became roommates because they were friends. That was in May. In November, a cold, unseen stranger, whom the doctors called pneumonia, stalked about the colony, touching one here and there with his icy fingers. So this stranger is actually pneumonia, and pneumonia is like another character coming to town. So here's some personification, calling pneumonia a person and capitalizing his name, touching things with icy fingers. Over on the east side, this ravager strode boldly, smiting his victims by scores, but his feet trod slowly through the maze of the narrow and moss-grown places. Mr. Pneumonia was not what you would call a chivalric old gentleman. He wasn't a knight in shining armor. A mite of a little woman with blood thinned by California zephyrs was hardly fair game for the red-fisted, short-breathed old duffer. So he would attack anybody. But Johnsy he smote, and she lay scarcely moving on her painted iron bedstead, looking through the small Dutch window panes at the blank side of the next brick house. So one of the girls, Johnsy, Joanna, got sick. And now they keep referring to Dutch because in the beginning, when New York was originally established, the Dutch sailors were there, and they established it as a place to do their trading and buying and selling of things and docking their boats, their ships. So it was. originally Dutch. Joanna got sick with pneumonia, a lung infection which can kill without antibiotics, and it used to kill people. It does still, but not anywhere near in the same numbers because now we have modern medicine. One morning, the busy doctor invited Sue into the hallway with shaggy gray eyebrow. "She has one chance in, let's say, 10," he said as he shook down the mercury in his clinical thermometer. "And that chance is for her to want to live. Your little lady has made up her mind that she's not going to get well. Has she anything on her mind?" She wanted to paint the Bay of Naples someday," said Sue. "Paint? Bosh! Has she anything on her mind worth thinking twice? A man, for instance?" So this doctor, this male doctor, thinks that her thinking about painting is not important enough to help her to live. The only thing that would be important enough to make her want to live is if she had a man on her mind. Very interesting. I don't know whether the author thinks this or if the author is making this character think this, that a woman needs a man. "A man?" said Sue, with a Jew's harp twang in her voice. That's an instrument that you twang in your mouth, and you can make these sounds with it. Um, I don't know whether or not that's a racist term, Jew's harp. I don't know. I guess I should look that up before I say it. Uh, "Is a man worth—" "But no, doctor, there's nothing of the kind." Kind of interesting that the girl would be like, "Is the man worth anything?" And she starts saying that. So maybe the author is pointing out this bias that men have. "Well, it's the weakness then," said the doctor. "I will do all that science, so far as it may filter through my efforts, can accomplish. But whenever my patient begins to count the carriages in her funeral procession, I subtract 50% from the curative power of medicines." Notice that it has the word cure in it. Okay. The power of medicines to cure, the curative power. "If you will get her to ask one question about the new winter styles in coat sleeves, I will promise you a 1 in 5 chance for her instead of 1 in 10. So apparently, the man thinks that if the woman becomes interested in new clothing styles, she'll want to live. So there's definitely some bias going on there, right? Some gender stereotyping. After the doctor had gone, Sue went to the workroom and cried a Japanese napkin to a pulp. And then she swaggered into Johnson's room with her drawing board whistling ragtime. So she was crying, but she came in swaggering and acting all bold and whistling, like you might whistle in the dark to get rid of a ghost and scare them away. Johnsy lay, scarcely making a ripple under the bedclothes with her face towards the window. Sue stopped whistling, thinking she was asleep. She arranged her board and began a pen and ink drawing to illustrate a magazine story. You remember they were both artists, and she's making money illustrating magazines back before photos were very popular. So people would draw the things that went in magazines. Young artists must pave their way to art by drawing pictures for magazine stories that young authors write to pave their way to literature, trying to earn some money because they were all starving artists in New York. As Sue was sketching a pair of elegant horseshoe riding trousers and a monocle of the figure of a hero, in Idaho cowboy, she heard a low sound several times repeated. She went quickly to the bedside. Johnny's eyes were open wide. She was looking out of the window and counting backward. 12, she said, and a little later, 11, and then 10, and 9, and then 8, and 7, almost together. Sue looked solicitously out of the window. What was out there to count? There was only a bare, dreary yard to be seen in the blank side of the brick house 20 feet away. An old ivy vine gnarled and decayed at the roots, climbing halfway up the brick wall. The cold breath of autumn had stricken the leaves from the vine until its skeleton branches clung almost bare to the crumbling bricks. "What is it, dear?" asked Sue. 6, said Johnsy, almost a whisper. They're falling faster now. 3 days ago, there were almost 100. It made my head ache to count them, but now it's easy. There goes another one. There are only 5 left now. 5 what, dear? Tell your Sudie. So apparently she has a nickname too. Instead of Sue, she's Sudie. Leaves, leaves on the ivy vine. When the last one falls, I must go too. I've known that for 3 days. Didn't the doctor tell you? Oh, I've never heard such nonsense, complained Sue with magnificent scorn. What have old ivy leaves got to do with your doing well? And you used to love that vine so, you naughty girl. Don't be a goosey. Why, the doctor told me this morning that your chances of getting well real soon were, let's see, exactly what he said. He said the chances were 10 to 1. Notice the way she made the chances better to try to, give her positivity. Why, that's almost as good a chance as we have in New York when we ride on the streetcars or walk past a new building. Try to take some broth now, and let Sudie go back to her drawing so she can sell the editor man with it and buy port wine for her sick child and pork chops for her greedy self. Notice that the girl is being cute about taking care of Johnsy as if she's her own child, when really they're just friends. You needn't get any more wine, said Johnsy, keeping her eyes fixed out of the window. There goes another. No, I don't want any broth. That leaves just 4. I want to see the last one fall before it gets dark, and then I'll go too. So she's waiting for the last leaf to fall, and then she's ready to die. Johnsy, dear, said Sue, bending over her, will you promise me to keep your eyes closed and not look out the window until I'm done working? I must hand in these drawings. By tomorrow, I need the light, or I would draw the shade down. So they live in this apartment with a nice window so they can draw. Remember, back in 1907, they did not have as good lighting as we do now. Couldn't you draw in the other room? Asked Johnsy coldly. I'd rather be here by you, said Sue. Besides, I don't want you to keep looking at those silly ivy leaves. Tell me as soon as you finish, said Johnsy, closing her eyes and lying white and still as fallen statue, because I want to see the last one fall. I'm tired of waiting. I'm tired of thinking. I want to turn loose my hold on everything and go sailing down, down, just like one of those poor, tired leaves. So she wants to become like the leaf. There's a metaphor, right? She wants to just let go of life and just sail off, just die, just fall off the vine. Try to sleep, said Sue. I must call Behrman up to be my model for the old hermit miner. I'll not be gone a minute. Don't try to move till I come back. So there's a guy downstairs, Behrman, a Dutch guy, and when she's drawing an illustration of a person, she can't quite remember in her mind what a person's supposed to look like, and so she gets a model, a person to come in and sit, and then she can remember where the elbow is supposed to go and all that stuff. So she's about to draw a miner on her illustration, and she needs somebody to sit for her. Old Behrman was a painter. I'm going to change this to select. Maybe that'll help. There we go. Okay, old Behrman was a painter who lived on the ground floor beneath them. He was past 60 and had a Michelangelo's Moses beard curling down from the head of a satyr, along with the body of an imp. Okay, so he looked like one of those ancient Greek half man, half horse guys. Behrman was a failure in art. 40 years he had wielded the brush without getting near enough to touch the hem of his mistress's robe. He had been always about to paint a masterpiece, but had never yet begun it. For several years he had painted nothing except now and then a daub in the line of commerce or advertising. He earned a little by serving as a model to these young artists in the colony who could not pay the price of a professional. He drank gin to excess and still talked of his coming masterpiece. For the rest, he was a fierce little old man who scoffed terribly at softness in anyone and who regarded himself as a special mastiff in waiting to protect the two young artists in the studio above. So here's an old guy who drinks too much and has never been a successful painter, has never painted his masterpiece, but he's kind of crabby and old, and he also likes to take care of the young uh, artists who live in his apartment or in the same building. Sue found Behrman smelling strongly of juniper berries, so he smelled like drinking. In his dimly lighted den below, in one corner was a blank canvas on an easel that had been waiting there for 25 years to receive the first line of the masterpiece. She told him of Johnsy's fancy and how she feared she would, indeed, light and fragile as a leaf herself, float away when her slight hold upon the world grew weaker. Old Behrman, with his red eyes plainly streaming, shouted his contempt and derision for such an idiotic imaginings. Was? He cried. Is there people in the world mit their foolishness to die because leaves they drop off from the confounded vine? I have not heard of such a thing. No, I will not pose as a model for your fool, Hermit Dunderhead. Why do you allow that silly pushiness to come to her brain of her? Act that poor little Miss Yonzy. So apparently he's supposed to have some kind of an accent. I have no clue as to whether my accent is anywhere near what it's supposed to be. She's very ill and weak, said Sue, and the fever has left her mind morbid and full of strange fancies. Very well, Mr. Behrman. If you do not care to pose for me, you needn't, but I think you are a horrid old flibbergidget. Flibbertigibbet. You're an old flibbertigibbet. You are just like a woman, yelled Behrman. Who said I'll not pose? Go on, I come with you. For half an hour I have been trying to say that I'm ready to pose. God, this is not any place in which so good as Miss Johnsy shall lie sick. Some day I will paint a masterpiece and we shall all go away. God, yes. So apparently he's okay. He's ready to pose, and he wished he could paint a masterpiece and get him enough money that they could all leave and go some better place. Johnsy was sleeping when they went upstairs. Sue pulled the shade down the windowsill and motioned Behrman to the other room, and there they peered out the window fearfully for the ivy vine, and then they looked at each other for a moment without speaking. A persistent cold rain was falling, mingled with snow. Behrman, in his old blue shirt, took his seat as the hermit miner on an upturned kettle for a rock. So he sat down and Sue painted him. When Sue awoke from an hour's sleep the next morning, she found Johnsy with dull, wide-open eyes staring at the drawn green shade. Pull it up! I want to see, she ordered in a whisper. Wearily, Sue obeyed. But lo! After the beating rain and the fierce gusts of wind that had endured through the lifelong night, there yet stood out against the brick wall one ivy leaf. It was the last one on the vine, still dark green near its stem, with its serrated edges tinted with yellow of dissolution and decay. It hung bravely from the branch some 20 feet above the ground. It's the last one, said Johnsy. I thought it would surely fall during the night. I heard the wind. It will fall today, and I shall die at the same time. Dear, dear, said Sue, leaning her worn face down on the pillow. Think of me. If you won't think of yourself, what would I do? So what would I do without you, right? She's trying to get Johnsy to care about living. But Johnsy did not answer. The lonesomest thing in all the world is a soul when it's making ready to go on to its mysterious far journey. The fancy seemed to possess her more strongly as one by one the ties that bound her to friendship and earth were loosened. The day wore away, and even through the twilight they could see that lone ivy leaf clinging to its stem against the wall. And then, with the coming of night, the north wind was again loosed, when the rain still beat against the windows and pattered down from the low Dutch eaves. When it was light enough, Johnsy, the merciless, commanded that the shade be raised. The ivy leaf was still there. Johnsy lay for a long time looking at it, and then she called to Sue, who was sitting stirring her chicken broth over the gas stove. "I've been a bad girl, Sooty," said Johnsy. "Something has made that last leaf stay there to show me how wicked I was. It's a sin to want to die. You may bring me a little broth now, and some milk with a little port in it, and no, bring me a hand mirror first, and then pack some pillows about me, and I'll sit up and watch you cook." So apparently Johnsy is now ready to eat, and now ready to comb her hair, and now ready to sit up and participate. An hour later she said, "Sooty, someday I hope to paint the Bay of Naples." So apparently she now has her hopes back. She now has something to live for, and it's painting, right? It's not a man, it's painting. The doctor came in the afternoon, and Sue had an excuse to go into the hallway as he left. "Even chances," said the doctor, taking Sue's thin, shaking hand in his. "With good nursing, you'll win. And now I must see another case I have downstairs. Behrman, his name is. Some kind of artist, I believe. Pneumonia, too. He's an old, weak man, and the attack is acute. There is no hope for him. But he goes to the hospital today to be made more comfortable." So apparently, the old man, Behrman, got sick also, and now he has pneumonia, but he's old, so he's going to die from it. The next day, the doctor said to Sue, "She's out of danger. You won. Nutrition and care now. That's all." And that afternoon, Sue came to the bed where Johnsy lay, contentedly knitting a very blue and very useless woolen shoulder scarf, and put one arm around her, pillows and all. "I have something to tell you, White Mouse," she said. "Mr. Behrman died of pneumonia today in the hospital. He was ill only 2 days. The janitor found him in the morning of the first day in his room downstairs, helpless with pain. His shoes and clothing were wet through and icy cold. They couldn't imagine where he had been on such a dreadful night. And then they found a lantern, still lighted, and a ladder that had been dragged out to its place, and some scattered brushes, and a palette with green and yellow colors mixed on it, and—" So she's describing that Mr. Behrman had been found in his room, all wet like he'd been outside, and a ladder, like he'd climbed a ladder outside, and some brushes and some paints all mixed up like he had been painting. "And look, out the window, dear, at the last ivy leaf on the wall. Didn't you wonder why it never fluttered or moved when the wind blew? Ah, darling, it's Behrman's masterpiece. He painted it there in the night that the last leaf fell." So apparently Behrman had gone outside in the middle of the night and painted a leaf on the brick wall, and that became his masterpiece because it made it so that Jonesy didn't want to die. So he did paint his masterpiece. And that's the end. Now, we also know that you don't get pneumonia from going outside in the cold. You get it from bacteria that gets into your lungs. So you wonder whether he was too close to this girl and got pneumonia from her. But that's not what the story is supposed to say, I don't think. So that's the whole story. Does anyone have any questions? Is there anything I missed? Okay, you do not need to do these questions. All right. So I will get the marker, drawing marker right here. Let's see, what color should we go with? Let's go with, let's find a red. Where are the color choices? They're not showing up. Okay, well I can't, so I'll just go with pink. I'll cross these out. make this a little bit bigger. There we go. Okay. That's it. Any questions? I'm going to turn off the recording then.